Okay, good morning, Year 10. I'm here to do some feedback on the assessments that you did yesterday. It is 9:50, it's our normal lesson time. I'm going to start straight away and I will upload the video to the website later. If, when we're going through, you've got any questions, please let me know by typing something in the comments box and I will try and answer them. I'm going to start with the paper version of the assessment. I'm going to talk you through it and I will hold it up when we're going through. If something doesn't make sense, please write a comment and let me know. So, starting with question 1, and very clearly it's got y equals 4x plus 3 and we're after the gradient and the intercept. Now remember, in a straight line graph, it's the form y equals mx plus c, where m, the bit in front of the x, is the gradient, and the c is the bit at the end, which is the y-intercept. So the gradient in this case, because it's 4x, is 4, and the y-intercept in this case is the bit on its own, which is the 3. So you get 1 mark for the gradient of 4 and the intercept of 3. Question 2. Where does the line 2x plus 5y equals 10 cross the line? Well, where does it cross the x-axis? Remember, on the x-axis, the one going across, then at that point y is nothing. So this is a bit like the cover-up method for drawing equations, which means where it crosses the y-axis, you've got 2x equals 10. Well, that means 2 times what equals 10? So x must be 5. Same applies with our y-axis. Where does it cross the y-axis? Going through there. Well, on the y-axis, x, the bit across the bottom, must be 0. So that means I've got 5 times y equals 10, which means that y equals 2. So you get 1 mark for each of those bits. Question 3. It says work out the coordinates of 2 points on the line y equals 12 minus 5x. Well, the easiest thing to do here is just to set some values of x. So if I'm going to pick x equals to 1. So I've got y equals 12 minus 5 times 1. 5 times 1 is 5, so 12 take away that 5 gives me a 7. So my first coordinate is x equals 1 and y equals 7. Second part, let's set x equals 2 this time. So I'll put x equals 2 in, I've got 12 minus 5x, so 12 minus 5 times 2, that's 12 minus 10, which gives us an answer of 2. So when x is 2, y is 2. And you get 1 mark for each of those coordinates. Okay, next bit, circle the equation of the line that's parallel to y equals 6 minus 3x. Well, remember, this is just y equals mx plus c, but they've swapped them around to try and confuse you. So if you want to write it in the proper form, it's y equals minus 3x plus 6. So it's going down as a graph, but it's going through an intercept of y equals 6, and we're looking for things that are parallel. Now, if they're parallel, the gradients must be the same. So we're looking for the one that's got a minus 3x. So it's the second one in, y equals minus 3x minus 6. And they're going to be parallel lines on our graph. Question number 5. Which of these is a sketch of y equals 5 minus 4x? Well, the minus 4x tells us that the gradient is negative, which means it's going to be pointing in a downwards direction. And the 5 tells us that our intercept on our axis is up here at 5 somewhere. So we've got to look at the ones that start at 5 and then go in a downward direction. Well, starting at 5 rules C and D out, which means you've got A and B. Now A and B is going in, A is going in an upwards direction, B in a downwards direction, and the gradient is minus 4. So B must be our answer. Turning on to the last page and question 6. Lots of people got a couple of marks here. This is really careful that you work out the midpoint correctly. So I've got 2 coordinates. I've got 0, 4, and I've got 10, 9, and I want to work out the midpoint. So remember, we do that in stages. We do our x coordinate first. So I've got an x coordinate of 0 and an x coordinate of 10. I add them together. So 0 plus 10, that equals 10. And I divide by 2 to get my midpoint. So my midpoint, first part, is 5, and that gets you 1 mark. My next bit, I've got 4 and 9. So I do 4 plus 9, which is 13. Then I divide by 2 to find the middle. 13 divided by 2 gives me 6.5. So my midpoint is 5, 6.5. You can do that by drawing on the graph if that helps you, but actually it's probably easier to do that bit of working out to get your midpoints underneath. Okay, part B is work out the gradient of that line. Now, gradient, remember, is the steepness of the line. It's our change in y over our change in x. So my y coordinate's gone from 4 to 9. So that's a change of 5. My x coordinate's gone from 0 to 10. That's a change of 10. 5 divided by 10 gives me 0.5 or a half. Now, it's pointing in an upwards direction, so we know that that gradient is positive. You get 1 mark for having 5 over 10, or an equivalent fraction, 1 mark for having your 0.5 or your half. So hopefully you've managed to purple pen that assessment, pick up from your mistakes, and just after Easter we'll have a redo on that. I will send out the feedback sheet so you can colour code it should you wish to and stick it into your books. Now the second part is all about the assessment that was on MathWatch. I didn't mind which way that you did it. Okay, they both had the same questions, just in a slightly different order. So if you need to go through the MathWatch, this is the bit now. And we're starting with the very first question, which said, find the equation of the line that passes through the points A and B. Now, A is 4, 7 and B is 2, 3. So remembering that the equation of a straight line is y equals mx plus c. And when we've got 2 points, the first thing we can work out is m, our gradient, which is our change in y divided by the change in x. Now, on these 2 coordinates that we've got, I'm going to start at B and go up to A, because that makes life a little bit easier. So y goes from 3 to 7, which is a change of 4. X goes from 2 to 4, which is a change of 2, which means my gradient is 2. I've now got y equals 2x plus c. So I'm halfway there. Not quite all the way there, but halfway there. Now, that means I now need to pick a coordinate, and I'm going to use coordinate B. That's where x equals 2 and y equals 3. And I'm going to substitute it in, which gives me 3 equals 2 times 2 plus c. Well, that's 3 equals 4 plus c. So what do I add on to 4 to get to 3? Well, it's minus 1. So c is minus 1. And I can combine all of that together to get y equals 2x minus 1 as my final answer. The working out should look something like that. Question 2 was find the gradients of the lines A and B. So here you've got a picture, got 2 different lines. Remember, we do that by doing a right angle triangle. Keeping to the squares, making life as easy as possible for ourselves, making the triangles as big as we can, just because that makes life easier. And then we do the gradient, is the change in y over the change in x. So for line A, I've started at 0, 1, and I've gone to 3, 7. So my change in y is 1 to 7, which is 6. My change in x is 0 to 3, which is 3. So I get a gradient of 2. For line B, I can do the same thing. I can pick a nice right angle triangle. And actually, you can do 0, 5 and 5, 0. And that means my y changes from 5 down to nothing, which is minus 5. My x changes from 0 to 5, which is 5, which means I get a gradient of minus 1. And we know it's negative because it's going downwards in a downward direction. Okay, pointing down. Our arrow is pointing up. Moving on to question 3. We've got to find the midpoint of A and B, where A's got the coordinates 2, 3 and B is 8, 9. It gives you a grid if you want to write on it, but you don't have to. Okay, so I'm going to choose not to. I'm just going to do our formula. I'm going to add the 2 x's together. 2 plus 8, which is 10. Divide by 2 and get 5. Add my y's together. 3 plus 9 is 12. Divide by 2 and get 6. So my midpoint is 5, 6. Okay. Then on to a multiple choice. Match the graph with one of the following equations. Well, we know the gradient is negative, so it's not A and it's not C. We know that it goes through a positive number, so our intercept, the number that's left on its own, must be a positive. So it's not B and it's not E, so we're left with D. Part B says, which of the following points lies on the line? And this is just about putting the numbers in. So I know for each set of coordinates, let's put it here. Part A, I've got 2 and 6. So therefore I can put in x equals 2 and y equals 6. So 3 times 6 is 18, 2 times 2 is 4, take away 1 gives me 3. So 18 equals 3. That's definitely not right. I keep going to the next one. This time x equals 1, y equals 2. So 3 times 2 equals 6. 2 times 1 equals 2, take away 1. 2 times 1 is 2, take away 1 is 1. So I get 6 equals 1. That's not true either, so it's not that one. I keep going. Next one, I've got x equals 2, y equals 1. 3 times 1 is 3. 2 times 2 is 4. Take away 1. I get 3 equals 3. So my answer is part C. Okay, moving on, we've then got to draw a straight line graph. Okay, it's appeared online, but it wasn't on the other assessment. Complete the table of values for y equals 2x plus 3. Remember, that means we do 2 times x, then add 3 on. So 2 times x, then add 3 on. So 2 times minus 2 is minus 4, plus 3 is minus 1. 2 times 0 is 0, add 3 gives you 3. And we can see now that there is a pattern emerging. It's going up in 2s, so I can just carry on. So minus 1, 1, 3, 5, 7, and then 9. That got you 2 marks. Then we have to plot those points on the grid. So across to minus 2, down to minus 1, back to minus 1 and up to 1, 0, 3, 1, 5, 2, 7, 3, 9. And when we've plotted those points, we should be able to join them up with a nice straight line and give ourselves a straight line graph. Last but not least then, choose the equation of line that's parallel to the x-axis while the x-axis goes across, which means it's a horizontal line, which means it's a y equals something line. And the only line that's a y equals something down there is D, where y equals 4. Any questions before we finish? If not, I will upload those answer sheets so you can mark things yourselves and purple pen, and also upload the feedback sheet. For those that have not yet handed in both tests that were done, please do that today so that they can be marked before you listen to this feedback, preferably. And then tomorrow we'll start a new topic, which is volume. Hope you're having a good day, Year 10. Look after yourselves.